Karen took a bin from my barn and was surrounded by FBI vehicles. I retired from the government to escape nonsense like this. I thought after 23 years working field logistics for the federal agency, I still can't name out loud. I'd finally earned some peace and dirt under my nails. Just me, a dozen goats, a tractor older than my knees, and 6 raised beds full of carrots and radishes. But peace is funny like that. The moment you start trusting it, someone with a pastel sweatshirt and a fake HOA badge shows up. Her name Karen Greenwell. And she almost triggered a national security protocol because she thought a bin in my barn looked suspicious. Let me take you back a week. Tuesday morning, chilly air. I was loading irrigation parts into a gray plastic storage bin. One of those heavy-duty military-grade units. You know the type locked, reinforced, about knee-high. It had a federal stamp on the lid, not something you buy at Home Depot. That bin didn't contain weapons, no explosives, no evidence bags. Just some classified soil testing gear I hadn't returned yet. Old habits die hard. The agency had me run one last post-retirement protocol test on some suspected contamination near our property line. No one told me I couldn't store the equipment in the barn, and since I was technically still under clearance until June 1st, I didn't think twice. I locked the bin, set it on 2 cinder blocks in the barn, and went back to feeding the goats. Karen showed up an hour later. Knock, knock. She yelled already halfway past my fence. I wiped my hands on my jeans, stepping out from behind the compost bin. "You're on private property, ma'am." She smiled that tight suburban smile, clipboard in hand, sunglasses big enough to block the truth. "I'm with the Clear Ridge Hills Property Standards Committee." "No, you're not." "I most certainly am. There is no such committee." She didn't blink. "We've had multiple visual complaints about unauthorized equipment on your lot, unregistered utility trailers, and," she lowered her voice, "possible storage of chemical materials." I tilted my head. "From who we have our sources? You mean the hawk who lives in the pine tree?" Her mouth twitched. Then she pointed toward the barn. "What's inside that gray bin?" I should have said fertilizer. Should have said tools. But I was tired of giving liars the benefit of the doubt. So I said none of your damn business. She left in a huff, muttering something about civil code violations and non-compliant lot use. I figured that was the end of it. Turns out that was just her reconnaissance mission. 3 days later, Friday, 5:27 a.m. I woke to the sound of tires crunching gravel. I peeked out the window. Karen's SUV, parked just off the access path, headlights off, tailgate open. I pulled on a coat, grabbed the bat I keep by the door, not a gun. Too easy to escalate, and stepped outside. She was inside the barn, bent over the gray bin. She had a crowbar. "Step away from that bin," I roared. She jumped, slammed the crowbar into the side, trying to pry the latch. "I'm conducting a safety inspection," she screamed. "You're hiding things from the community. That bin is federal property. Then why is it on residential land?" She pried harder. That's when I saw it. The lid crack, the seal break. A hiss of nitrogen vapor escaped from the interior chamber. Karen staggered back, coughing. And that's when my heart dropped. Because that bin had containment sensors. I didn't need to call anyone. The bin called them itself. I stepped back, hand trembling, fumbling for my phone, but I was already too late. Before I could even unlock the screen, I heard the roar. Engines. Big ones. 3 black SUVs came flying down the county road like bats out of hell. 2 more flanked from the woods, unmarked, but familiar. I hadn't seen that formation since 2009. The feds were here, and Karen was still holding the crowbar. One agent leapt from the lead vehicle. "On the ground, both of you," I dropped the bat. "Hands up." Morales, retired technician. ID 7889F. "This is my property." Karen stood frozen, eyes wide. I'm the one who called it in. "He's hiding something dangerous." "You tampered with classified federal material," I said calmly, "on private land, with no authorization." "I'm with the HOA." An agent snatched the crowbar from her hand. "You're with nothing." 10 minutes later, Karen was zip-tied and sobbing on a folding chair under my apple tree. 4 agents in hazmat suits carefully removed the cracked bin, sealing it into a double-layered containment wrap. Another set of agents walked the perimeter, flagging points of intrusion. They didn't even look at me for the first 20 minutes. Then one of them, an old friend, surprisingly stepped forward. "Jesus, Eli," he muttered. "We thought you were the problem." I was. I said, "I trusted the wrong people to leave me alone." Karen was screaming now. "They're hiding things in barns, I was right." An agent turned to me. "You want to press charges?" I nodded once. "Everything you can throw at her." That morning, the news didn't say much. Just suburban woman arrested after tampering with federal equipment in rural property incident. But Bramble County, it exploded. Karen had been on her HOA throne for 2 years, fake as it was. Fining people, shaming them, threatening to call CPS over uncut lawns. And now she'd sparked a federal investigation by breaking into a barn that wasn't hers, with a crowbar. The damage to the equipment, $62,000. The report she interrupted part of a pilot program tied to agricultural contamination linked to interstate water runoff. Classified, yes. Traceable, very. And now officially compromised. I should have been angry, but all I felt was exhaustion. Because when someone breaks into your home, it's not just your things they take, it's your peace. And in Karen's case, she took more than she could carry and ended up with 7 unmarked black SUVs parked on her lawn. You'd think after nearly getting arrested alongside the woman who broke into my barn, I'd get a call from someone higher up, maybe an apology, a courtesy check-in, something. Instead, what I got was silence. That's what worried me most. Because in the government world I used to work in, silence rarely means over. It means unfinished. The FBI agents left around noon, the day Karen cracked open the bin. They sealed it up, red-tagged my barn, and ordered me to stay off the property line until further notice. I didn't argue, didn't ask questions, but I did what I always do when something doesn't add up. I listened. And what I heard through rumors, back channels, and one late-night message from a friend still in the system was enough to set my jaw tight. Karen had been seen meeting regularly with a man named Devin Nash. The name didn't ring a bell until I pulled up county records. Turns out, Nash was the regional director of a company called Havencore Residential Trust. And Havencore, they'd recently purchased 17 parcels of rural land surrounding my farm. Now here's the part you need to understand. Karen never cared about my bin. Not really, as she cared about what it represented. Something off the grid, something official, something she could point at and say, "See, he's dangerous. He's hiding something. Get him out." It wasn't about safety. It was about pressure, and that pressure, it was coming from above. I drove to the Bramble County Clerk's office the next day and started pulling zoning change proposals. It took about 20 minutes before I found what I was looking for. Proposal Marjo 932E8 RE, Clear Ridge Rural Transition Initiative. A 58-page document outlining plans to reclassify agricultural lots within a 5-mile radius as emerging mixed-use ecological zones. Sounds harmless, right? Until you read page 9. Land deemed non-compliant or mismanaged by current owners may be subject to reallocation under the County Eco-Security Revitalization Order, 14B, reallocation. That's a word they don't use unless they're planning to take something. Karen wasn't acting alone. She was being fed a mission. Create enough concern. Stir up just enough local chaos. Frame me and others as fringe threats to community integrity. Then let the real players swoop in and offer solutions. Solutions that involve buyouts, bulldozers, and control. I went back to the file. 3 signatures stood out: Devin Nash, Regional Director, Havencore; Clarissa Hume, County Zoning Consultant; and Karen Greenwell, listed as Community Liaison. She had no authority, but she had a signature, and they were using it. I called someone I hadn't talked to in 2 years. Sonia McLean, former DHS compliance auditor, now working in independent land oversight. We served together for 5 years in New Mexico during the cartel sting operations. She owed me a favor. I sent her everything. Within hours, she called me back. Her voice was flat. Eli, you've stumbled into a classic pretext play. This isn't a zoning change. It's a controlled reset. They manufacture instability, then offer to stabilize it with their own policy, usually through public-private partnerships. If you push back, they escalate, sabotage, framing, even buyouts under threat of condemnation. And that bin in your barn, she continued. They didn't expect it. That was a wild card, and Karen took the bait. So here's what we had. A fake HOA run by Karen. A private developer acquiring rural land through pressure and intimidation. County-level players quietly approving rezoning. And now a broken federal bin with tracking data pointing straight to my property. It wasn't just a dispute anymore. It was a covert land grab. That night, someone slashed my fence line. Didn't steal anything. Just left the gate wide open so my goats could wander into the road. I found them at 3 a.m., huddled by the ditch, scared and panting. Someone wanted to remind me you're not untouchable. But here's the thing. I may have retired, but I never forgot how to fight smart. The next day, I started calling neighbors, especially the older ones who'd inherited their land from family. Folks like me who'd held on even when the developers circled like vultures. I told them what I'd found. At first, they didn't believe me. Then I showed them the zoning packet, then the satellite map showing proposed integration zones drawn through their homes. That's when their eyes changed. That's when we started organizing. We called ourselves the Fence Line Coalition. 12 landowners, 2 former Army officers, a retired lawyer, a grandmother with a drone license, and me with my bat, my goats, and a bin that had caused more chaos than a tornado. We drafted a letter to the county commission. We scheduled a public hearing. We compiled photographic evidence of fake citations, property surveys Karen conducted without consent, and text messages she sent to residents telling them to get ahead of the change by selling now. And most important, we found one man in the zoning office willing to speak off record. He told us Karen was receiving stipends from a nonprofit shell company linked to Haven Corps. The name of that nonprofit, Citizens for Community Harmony. You can't make this stuff up. Karen wasn't just nosy. She was paid to be nosy. And now she was facing federal tampering charges because she thought she was untouchable. I sent Sonia everything we'd compiled. She looped in a friend at the OIG Office of Inspector General. And 2 weeks later, the firestorm hit. Search warrants were issued. Haven Corps' local office was shut down for audit. Karen was rearrested for violating her pretrial agreement. She'd attempted to contact a zoning board member behind closed doors, and Devin Nash disappeared. Rumor says he resigned and fled the state, but the trail he left behind, it was enough to light a fire under the county's feet. We weren't victims anymore. We were a movement, and this time we had receipts. I never thought I'd stand at a podium again. Not after retirement. Not after walking away from the alphabet soup of agencies that trained me to shut up and stand back. But that Thursday evening, under the flickering fluorescent lights of Bramble County Hall, I stood in front of a microphone wearing the same jacket I wore the day I received my field commendation, and I said, "This isn't about property values. This is about sovereignty. This is about dignity. And this is about calling liars what they are dangerous." The room fell silent. Then I clicked the remote and played the video. It was a drone recording taken by our coalition's most underestimated member, Miriam Glenn, age 68 widow, quilting club leader, and FARA-certified drone hobbyist. In the video, Karen and Devin Nash, walking behind the Haven Corps model home. Karen held a clipboard. Nash handed her a white envelope. Then, audio clearer than expected, Nash. "If you can get the Morales lot classified as hazardous, that'll speed up the board." "Karen, he's got something weird in his barn. I already filed a report." Nash: "Good, get the others nervous. The Walcotts are on the fence." Karen: "What about buyouts?" Nash: "Start low. Remind them it's all going to be green space eventually. People fear being left behind." Pause. Then Karen laughed. That condescending, clipped little laugh we all knew too well. The crowd watching in the county hearing room didn't move. Then someone whispered, "She sold us out." And that's when the room turned. the council chair. Margaret Rains, once skeptical of us, looked straight at the city attorney. "Did you know about this?" He shook his head. He was pale. "This is the first I've seen of it." Margaret turned back to me. "Mr. Morales, do you have more?" I nodded. "Yes, ma'am, I do." I presented a folder of fake citations Karen issued under a non-existent HOA authority. Testimonies from 5 residents coerced to sell under threat of being outzoned. Bank statements linking Citizens for Community Harmony to Haven Corps' general account. A notarized memo from a former county zoning employee stating she was told to rubber stamp rezoning plans pre-written by Haven Corps attorneys. But it wasn't the documents that cracked it open. It was the testimony. Miriam stepped up, hands trembling. She spoke of how Karen left a note on her husband's grave after he passed, demanding she remove the unauthorized memorial stone. The crowd gasped. "Karen made me feel like I didn't belong in my own home," Miriam said. "She called my flowers lawn pollution. She reported me for wind chimes. But I kept the drone footage, because the land remembers." Then came Tom Ibarra, then Joy Walcott, then Hank the beekeeper, ex-Marine, who said, "You can tow my truck, you can find my fence, but you don't get to rewrite where I'm from." By the end of the testimonies, the board didn't just freeze Haven Corps' expansion. They suspended all development approvals tied to the zoning department pending a full audit. But the real twist that came from inside the board itself. One of the junior commissioners, Darius Lynn, stood up after the vote. He looked nervous, sweaty. He cleared his throat and said, "I need to disclose something. I accepted a consulting fee from Haven Corps 3 months ago. They paid me $8,000 to review land integration plans. I didn't know they were coercing residents. I just thought it was standard outreach." Margaret Rains narrowed her eyes. "You didn't think a consulting job with a development firm while sitting on a zoning board was questionable?" He swallowed hard. "I didn't think they'd go this far." The room exploded. Reporters shouting, camera shutters clicking. Darius stepped down the next day. Karen was officially charged with conspiracy to defraud, trespassing, tampering with federal equipment, and unauthorized impersonation of a municipal authority. Haven Corps' license to operate in Bramble County was suspended indefinitely, and the fake Citizens for Community Harmony nonprofit dissolved by federal order. I didn't smile, didn't cheer, because winning a battle like this, it doesn't feel like winning. It feels like holding the line, like staring down a wildfire and praying the dirt is deep enough to stop it. That night, I drove home. The goats were quiet. The barn light flickered back to life. The red tag had been removed. Inside the barn, the new federal bin was there. Smaller, sealed, labeled simply Evidence Trust Breach. Rural Unit 9. I closed the door and stood for a long time. Not because I was afraid, but because I was finally free to breathe. It didn't end with courtrooms or press releases. It ended with a potluck. Funny. Right after all that FBI raids, fake HOAs, zoning corruption, we found healing over brisket, sweet tea, and a crock pot of mystery casserole that no one admitted to bringing. But maybe that's how things start to heal. Not with speeches, with presence. 3 weeks after the final vote, we held our first Free Neighbors Day. No gatekeepers, no clipboards, no community standards, just people. Some brought seeds to share. Some brought their stories. One man, Mr. Thompson, who used to grumble every time a kid rode a bike on the sidewalk, brought a crate of watermelon and said, "Guess it's time I stopped yelling at Joy." The crowd laughed, and no one clapped louder than Joy Walcott herself. Karen's house was sold off by the state to pay restitution. No one cheers when someone loses everything, but no one cried either. She'd built her kingdom on fear, on silence, on this twisted belief that order was more important than belonging. And in the end, her own noise is what brought the silence crashing down. We repainted the old community kiosk, tore off the fake HOA bulletins and covered the corkboard with Polaroids kids playing, neighbors planting, goats wearing party hats. Yes, goats. I wasn't going to let them miss out on their own victory. And the barn that red-tagged, padlocked, caution-taped barn, We opened it, cleaned it, turned it into a shared workshop, saws, ladders, benches, and one bright yellow sign hanging from the rafters that reads, "Respect lives here, not regulation." A month later, a local podcast came out to interview me. The host asked, "What was the moment you knew your neighborhood had changed?" I looked across the field, saw Tom Ibarra fixing the fence without anyone asking, and said, "When people stopped checking each other's lawns and started checking on each other instead." But the question that keeps coming back, the one folks still argue over, goes like this. Was Karen evil or just misguided? Some say she meant well, that she believed in structure, that she thought she was protecting us. But here's what I say. Intent doesn't excuse destruction. Good intentions with bad methods still poison a well. And fear, once weaponized, doesn't just vanish, it lingers. Until someone stands up and says, "No more." Wide-angle sunset shot of Eli's land. The barn is open. Laughter spills out. A neighbor tunes a guitar. Someone flips burgers. Children chase goats around picnic tables. At the fence line, two families, one new, one old, shake hands for the first time. The camera pans upward to the old metal gate that once had a compliance notice stapled to it. Now it holds a new sign: "You are seen. You belong. You're home." The camera pulls back slowly, dust rising in golden light, as Eli leans on a pitchfork, smiling, not proud, not defiant, but at peace. Power doesn't always come from a badge. Sometimes it comes from staying, from refusing to give in, from knowing that a man with goats, a garden, and a quiet life can still shake the ground when justice calls his name. Call to action. What would you do if someone like Karen claimed authority over your life? Was she just a tool or something more dangerous? Drop your thoughts below. Share this story if you believe community is earned, not enforced. And ask yourself, what does it really mean to belong where you live?